What's up, y'all? It's Erica. Welcome to the Milk Manual. Today we're going to be talking all about the books that helped me feel better at my job. Specifically, this goes more so for private practice rather than the hospital. But maybe I'll do a part two because there were some books, I don't own them, that my previous hospital had that I read like during my shift, which I found super helpful. I just need to remember those titles. But these are some books that I have here at home that have helped me make Instagram posts, have helped me throughout my job, and I just want to share these with you. As always, links will be in the description, so if you're interested in any of the books, I'll have the links down there. They'll likely be affiliate links, which basically means like if you choose to buy them through the link, I get like the tiniest commission from it. And again, this isn't like sponsored. Nobody told me to say that these books were great. These are just something I think that helped me specifically, especially because I suffer from imposter syndrome literally every 6 months. Well, I did. I don't as much anymore, thank goodness. But I was like, somewhere I said like imposter syndrome and burnout like go hand in hand. So who knows? Anyways, let's just get into the books now. So first book is this one. It's called Tongue Tied, as you can see. Pretty hefty. I think throughout the book, yeah, I like took a lot of notes. There's pictures. I don't know if this is, you can see it. Anyways, there's pictures, just lots of information about tongue ties. Not just information, but also again, it goes really in depth about like how it affects nursing, feeding, speech, other issues. And I think this book is not only great for an introduction to tethered oral tissues and how they impact feedings, but it's also a great introduction to give to parents. So like, I don't know, I think it's just written in such a way that makes this whole topic 50 times easier to digest. Working in the hospital, of course, I don't deal with as much of this as I used to in private practice, but I think if you have any plans to become a lactation consultant, this is something that you should become knowledgeable in and well versed in, and I think this book is very helpful for that. This is the second book on the list, Supporting Sucking Skills in Breastfeeding Infants. This kind of goes along with the first one, except you get to apply all of your knowledge into your practice, and I thought that was really helpful. I also have annotated all over this book, and again, let me go to the table of contents to kind of get the, I wrote like notes that are irrelevant too, so I'm like, what? But I'm gonna go to the table of contents to kind of just give you a brief intro of everything that's in there. So breastfeeding, normal sucking and swallowing, which I think is really helpful in working on like suck training and suck practice and those type of things in postpartum, or not in postpartum, those things in private practice. But I've also applied a lot of this whenever I go to the hospital, even now, and just kind of working on things to reintegrate baby suck. And that has been actually really helpful because I don't think I had this book when I worked in the hospital the first time. And so now, knowing what I know, I do feel that I'm able to like put forth this type of professional skill set that I don't think a lot of hospital lactation consultants do. Anyways, it also talks about birth practices and the impact on suck, which again, working in the hospital, super helpful to know how birth practices can impact things and being able to educate families on that as well. I wish we could educate everybody on it, but like maybe one day. Anyways, how infants learn to feed, kind of milk flow that's too fast, too slow, just skill sets that you can learn. Breastfeeding a preterm infant, which is really helpful to know. All the different things that impact how they suck, hands-on therapy, which is mostly like, how we can do like suck training and different little exercises. Again, I applied a lot of those in private practice. And this book also, well, let me finish going to the table of contents. But this book also in the back has pictures and step-by-step instructions of how to do those things, which I thought was helpful. So the sensory integration, neurological things, counseling for parents, and I thought that was really helpful. And same with different positions that families can do. I know a lot of people are like, we know the basics, but this book kind of goes over things that can be helpful for babies who do have like oral restrictions or anything like that. So yeah, and then there's pictures, of course, pictures of mouths. I hate black and white pictures, I'm not gonna lie, but they're still helpful. More pictures and kind of like assessment techniques, tips on just lots of great tips. I really enjoy this book. I've read it several times because I, would go back and be like, what can I do better for this family? Like I'd get the assessment on the family, I'd apply what I knew, and then I would go home and be like, okay, but what more can I do? And this book was really helpful in me always figuring out what more I could do. So this book is called Mother Food. It's about foods and herbs that promote milk production and mother's health. My main thing about this book is I don't necessarily like the way some of things are said, but at the same time, I feel like this book was written a longer time ago. Well, 2004, so I don't know. Or maybe it's 1956. I'm not gonna lie. I have no idea. It has 2 different dates. Like, I don't know. Anyways, there's some of it that's like worded in more of a condescending a condescending way, but also some of the stuff I'm not 100% sure if it is like perfect. But on the other end, when it comes down to like the nutritional aspects, foods that would be good, galactagogues, like knowing herbs and all those type of things and being able to relay that information to parents, I really like the book. So again, let's just go to the table of contents. There isn't a table of contents actually. So I guess we'll just kind of go through it a little bit. So like tools to building a sustained milk supply. And I want to say all this info came out before the concept of like exclusive pumping was a thing or combo feeding. So there's some language in the book that's basically saying like those are unsustainable from what I remember. And I remember not liking that. But if you take that part out of your brain and just think specifically about the foods, it's pretty good. So anyways, it talks about the galactagogues, benefits of that type of diet. And again, I only look at this book for the food parts. So lots of different foods, lots of nutritional information, which I think is helpful, especially because I'm not a nutritionist. I don't know as much, talks about like leaky gut, like intestinal inflammation, like all of these type of things. If mother has a food sensitivity, allergens, like just lots of different things. It talks about possible things that could be good for your supply. Again, more a list of those lactogenic foods. But then I think here in the back, there's also some things that have like some recipes, which is really nice. Lots of cultural things as well, which has been really helpful for me, especially living in Houston. Houston is so diverse, and I have been so lucky to see so many different types of families and like so many different types of cultures and what they do and the type of foods that they eat. And a lot of my generation, like a newer generation, will know like, hey, I can eat this. I know that I can, but my mom says I can't. And so kind of educating on that. But then also some of them will even say like, well, mom wants to make me this type of soup, but I know that won't help. And then like reading this book, I'm like, actually, I did read like that type of soup could be beneficial. So the cultural aspects of foods are also in here, which I found really helpful. And then it goes to the back and talks about each herb. This one I have specific about fenugreek because, as y'all know, fenugreek's always talked about. And it just talks about like side effects on mom, baby, when to use it, when not to use it, what it can do, what it can't do. A whole page on fenugreek and like lots of information about improving low milk supply. So anyways, I like the book for that. And again, just for kind of knowing more about the foods. One of the biggest questions I get as a lactation consultant from parents, from grandparents, from anybody, what can I eat? What should I avoid? And the thing is, I've learned in this job that people want an answer. Nobody wants to hear, you can eat whatever you want, or you don't have to worry about it, avoid anything. Like, they specifically want to hear something. So instead of saying like, oh, you can eat whatever you want, I always say like, the options are endless. You are able to eat as many foods as you want, but let me tell you some of the foods that are rumored to kind of help increase your milk supply. Let's talk about some of the foods that may be better for you. But again, there's not always like a perfect study. This might not work for you, but if you are looking for some foods, here's 10 of them. And I usually would just say those 10. So yeah, that is the book, Mother Food. What we have here is the Breastfeeding Atlas. I actually did not get this book before I took the IB CLC exam or IBLCE exam. I don't know the title of the actual exam, but I didn't get this book before I took it, though it would have been really helpful. I got the book after. But this book is still really helpful, and I kind of want to just showcase it a little bit. So it's helpful if you're going to study for the test, but it has lots of info in here. It's kind of like short snippets, like really quick, which is great. And it goes through a lot of things. Birth trauma is what we got so far. Infant stools, positioning and latching, flat and inverted nipples, sore nipples. But not only is it just like, oh, sore nipples, it talks about like what you can do for it, why they're being caused, like those type of things. And I do feel like this book actually gets a little bit more analytical and in depth than some of the other books that I've had, because they like put studies in here and those type of things. And once I was working with someone who had like a recurrent issue, and I couldn't find anything in some of these books that I have, but then I found it in here and I brought it up with her, and she was like, oh, well, let's try this and let's switch to this medication and blah, blah, blah. And it ended up being the thing that worked. And so I found this book really helpful just for that case, but it goes over a lot of the breastfeeding basics, or a lot of the typical things that you would expect, but also a little bit more in depth about those things. Lots of it, as you can see here, there's lots of information about like oversupply, the things that happen with oversupply, bacteria, viruses, like so much stuff. And I just found that really helpful. But the biggest thing about this book are the pictures. So let's get to the picture section. And this is the part that people would use whenever they were studying for their exam. But I'm not going to show it because it might be like explicit. But anyways, the whole back half is full of pictures, lots of stuff like that. Again, I'm not going to show it because I don't want to get flagged for any reason. But as you can see, lots of pictures there in the back of the book. So this is the Breastfeeding Atlas. Again, I used all of these things, all of these books to make posts for Instagram a lot of times. So sometimes I couldn't find the answer I was looking for in one book, so I would go to another book. And this is one of the books that I definitely use when making Instagram posts and kind of making sure I have my, kind of making sure that I have all my info covered. Like, you want receipts? You got receipts. You want to know where my sources are from? Here's where my sources are from. So that's this book. We're moving on to the 5th book. There's only 6, so we're almost done. This one actually just recently got Spanish for breastfeeding support. First of all, let me just say I love Spanish. Currently today, I'm on like day maybe 49 on my Duolingo streak for Spanish. So I've always loved Spanish. I have always been like passionate about knowing more. When I started off as a mother baby nurse, I worked at a hospital with a lot of Spanish speaking patients. And so I started to feel really confident in Spanish then, but that was like 8 years ago. And then I stopped working when I had my babies. And then I went to lactation, and that hospital was not as Spanish speaking. So I kind of just lost it all. And then I came back. Now I'm at a different hospital again in Houston, and I'm back to more of a Spanish-speaking population. And I love Spanish. I have always wanted to be able to just like hold my own whenever I'm conversing. So this book, now one thing I'll say is whenever I was learning Spanish before, I basically just, with one of my friends who speaks Spanish fluently, would just text her and be like, hey, how do you say this? And then make flashcards. And so I saw this book at work and I was like, okay, I have to order that. And I ordered it. And I have not, it's like fill in the blank style. Oh, sorry, let me go to a better page, one that's not gonna get me flagged, baby. You see it has like fill in the blank type of stuff. So it is something to like get you to work on Spanish, which I think is really helpful. And then here, like where the words are, talking about like what the words are, how to say it. Now, one thing though is I don't know if the person who wrote this book is a fluent Spanish speaker or if this is their translation of Spanish. And for me, the fact that I don't know that feels a little problematic on my end. Like, I need to learn Spanish from someone who speaks Spanish fluently, because from what I remember about the Spanish that I learned in school versus the Spanish that I've used before when I've been in Mexico is it does not it doesn't always translate the same way. You know what I mean? Like, it's more of a formal version that I'm learning, and I truly would rather just learn the conversational version. So anyways, I don't know. That's the one thing about the book that I don't know, and I'm gonna ask my friend. But all in all, I think it's a really cool, like, I think it's a cool book where I can just kind of go through and complete exercises and those type of things. And then here at the back, I haven't listened to them yet, but I'm hoping to put them in my car today. There's discs that have an audio of conversational breastfeeding Spanish. So this book, I'm really excited about kind of like digging into it a little bit more this year. I almost didn't include it in my list, but again, I am excited about it. And even here, there's like full conversations, English and in Spanish, which is really helpful for me to know, like right here, is it okay if I touch your breast and your baby? That is a question I will always ask. So just the fact that it's right there, I can put it on a flashcard. I can just kind of read this and know exactly like how to have a conversation. And I just am really excited about that and excited to improve my Spanish. So now on the last book, the Holy Grail, baby. And there's a newer edition of it, but it is this book, The Breastfeeding and Human Lactation. It is an actual like textbook. This is the only book that I use to study for the IBCLC exam. And I talk a lot about my process of studying for that exam, preparing for it, and all that jazz in my webinar that talks about how I became a lactation consultant. It is $15, and the reason why it costs money is because it took me a lot of time when I first made the video, and I just, you know, if I'm gonna put all my info on blast, because I even share my test results, like how I did, all those type of things, and I feel like it does just get very in-depth, not only on how to become a lactation consultant, but the steps that I took personally, my notes, like etc. So if that is something that you're interested in, the link will be below as well. You can check that out. But this is the book that I used to study for that test. This is the book that I used to make Instagram posts. This is the book that I'll go to if I am unsure of something. Now, this book, honestly though, is more basics in comparison to like the tongue-tied book or the supporting sucking skills book, because this book doesn't have as much about tongue tie and like very niche areas of being a lactation consultant, but overall it has a lot of good info in it. So it's a big old book, like you can see that. I'm not gonna read this whole table of contents, but it has a lot of info in it. So yeah, it just goes over, even the first chapter is about the lactation specialist, roles and responsibilities, like what we do, how to get your certification, ways to work. Like, so there's like community setting, volunteer setting, working in an office, the ethics, the reimbursement, private practice and how to do that. And then chapter 2 talks about like kind of like the sociological things with breastfeeding. There's a whole section on the anatomy and physiology, which talks about breast milk and like its components, drug therapy, breast problems, postpartum, almost any type of breast condition, disease, virus, anything like that is in this book. Breastfeeding, going back to work, all so many things. And so I really like this book for that. Here in the center also, so there's a picture section here. Again, can't show you too much, but I really like this book, and it just gives a lot of information about breastfeeding. This is the older, I think there's a newer edition of this book, and I really like, but I just really like it in general. I'm not buying another book. So yeah, this is the 6th book. I really like it, and I hope you do too. Those are the books. 6 books that I really like right now that are sitting on my bookshelf that I refuse to get rid of, and that I am sharing with you because I hope that these things help you the same way that they helped me. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, she forgot this book, just comment down below. I would love to know what books helped you. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you really liked it, please share it. And if you really like being here, sticking around, and the videos that I make, please subscribe as well, and tell all your friends to subscribe too. Like I said, all of the books, the links will be in the bio. The link to my little webinar about, not my little webinar, it's a great webinar, but the link to the webinar that I did on how to become an IBCLC will also be in the description below. And if you have any ideas of things you want to see, as always, just let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye.